All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the pyraclaw framework, and we're looking at how it's basically turning the looming August 2026 EU AI Act compliance nightmare into a mathematically provable reality. If you're running AI in a high-stakes environment right now, the era of relying on blind trust, yeah, it's officially over. We're going to break down the exact architecture that replaces that just trust us mentality with hard, undeniable cryptographic proof.
So that brings us to the core problem facing literally every enterprise today. How exactly do you audit a black box? Think about it. When a machine learning model makes a massive decision, like denying a mortgage, flagging a medical scan, or filtering out a job applicant, it's processing millions of signals all at once. But the problem is, it simply can't tell you how it arrived at its output in a way that a human auditor can actually sit down and verify. You see, traditional software was totally auditable by design. You could just pull up the code, trace the logic step by step, and have absolute certainty about why the program did what it did. But neural networks, they're opaque by nature. Up until now, auditing AI kind of meant relying on manual review logs, maybe third-party consultant reports, or literally taking screenshots of an interface. I mean, none of those are tamper-proof, and more importantly, absolutely none of them are going to satisfy regulators moving forward.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for the explainer today. 1. The accountability crisis. 2. QIDO and RSFS guardrails. 3. Nanosecond TAI evidence sealing. 4. The swarm coordination engine. And finally, 5. The home run hardware burn.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the accountability crisis. And let me tell you, the clock is absolutely running on this. The EU AI Act is the world's very first comprehensive AI regulation, and it actually becomes enforceable for high-risk systems in August 2026. This right here is why every boardroom is panicking, 35 million euros. Under these new laws, the penalty for non-compliance can hit up to 35 million euros or 7% of a company's global annual turnover, whichever is higher. So the stakes for unexplainable AI failures, they aren't just a PR problem anymore. They are existentially, financially terrifying.
Moving into Section 2, QEDO and RSSB guardrails, turning a black box to a glass box. Now, pyraclaw is a framework specifically designed to turn that opaque AI into a fully transparent, auditable infrastructure. Think of it as a governance layer that sits right on top of your AI, capturing and sealing every single decision. It relies on two major patented components. First, there's RSFS, or recursive semantic fingerprinting, which captures the profound context and meaning behind an AI's output to generate a mathematically unique fingerprint. And then there's QEDO, the quantum encrypted decision object, which defines the actual physical structure of the evidence capsule, protecting that fingerprint.
So how does it work? QEDO evaluates 4 incoming signals: intent, evidence, risk, and protected action status. And based on those, it routes a decision through this really elegant tri-lane logic system. If everything checks out, it gets a pass, and the action executes. If there's not quite enough certainty, it gets a hold, meaning we need human confirmation here. And if it violates safety parameters, it gets a fail. The action is blocked, but, and this is crucial, the attempt is preserved permanently so you can audit it later.
That brings us to Section 3, nanosecond TI evidence sealing. Welcome to the cryptographic vault. Once a decision safely clears with a pass, it heads straight into the Chronosguard architecture. This is the vault, where these approved decisions are permanently locked down before the system ever actually takes action. And the rigor here is just staggering. Pyraclaw uses a 5-dip Swiss vault seal. It passes the evidence through SHA-256, SHA-512, SH-3256, SH-3512, and finally SHAKE-256. It's this overwhelming level of cryptographic redundancy, designed specifically to guarantee strict, tamper-evident accountability. No one is tweaking this data after the fact. But here is the real kicker: how these capsules are chained together. They are linked end-to-end using strictly increasing nanosecond TAI stamps. That's International Atomic Time. Because of this perfectly exact nanosecond sequencing, any edit, any alteration, or any tampering at all with a sealed capsule instantly breaks its hash. It creates a flawless, indisputable audit trail that regulators are going to love. Which perfectly leads into a core rule of the pyraclaw system. Stealth is wealth. Power does not announce itself. This mantra dictates exactly how the system handles sensitive enterprise data. It visibly preserves total accountability, right? It creates a verifiable shape of the workflow. But it does all of that without ever leaking your operational payloads, your proprietary source code, or your trade secrets hidden inside those sealed capsules. All right, Section 4, the Swarm Coordination Engine. Let's talk about the mathematics of control. To actually run these massive decisions at scale, the system uses the R-Power Swarm engine to coordinate literally millions of microagents. And the math behind this is fascinating. It uses a graph-Lopatian consensus, which is basically a way for local agents to mathematically agree, combined with a global objective gradient. Then it measures the coherence of the whole swarm using what's called a Kuramoto order parameter. Think of that as a strict synchronization score. If that score ever drops below 0.92, a mathematical kill switch called the K2 fail-close-kill criterion kicks in and instantly locks down the system to keep everything safe. Now, even with all this automated complexity, Pyros operates on one very specific foundational philosophy: augmentation, not replacement. The system is built from the ground up to keep humans at the absolute apex of the control pyramid. No high-consequence action ever executes without a clear, revocable, and fully intelligible human confirmation path. It's a human-in-the-loop operating system, plain and simple. Moving on to Section 5, the home run hardware burn. Time for some physical proof at scale. Because, hey, abstract math is great, but to prove this architecture actually works under massive enterprise stress, the engineering team ran a brute force physical stress test called the Home Run Coburn. And they spun up an absolute powerhouse instance on BrevDev. We're talking a flagship loadout, 8 NVIDIA H200 GPUs, linked up with NVLink, pushing over a terabyte of HBM3E memory. Pair that with a 252-core CPU hive mind, 1.4 TB of RAM, and over 6 terabytes of parallel SSD storage. They took this massive Brev powerhouse rig and saturated it simultaneously for a continuous 2-hour burn just to generate raw, measurable evidence of what the framework can actually do. And the results? 1.3 billion. In just that single 2-hour test, the 252-core CPU hive mind processed roughly 1.3 billion microagent invocations. It's an unfathomable number that really showcases how this framework can fan out massive parallel tasks while still maintaining that strict governance and generating cryptographic evidence for literally every single step. And this just brilliantly illustrates the sheer horsepower of that hardware acceleration. When they calculated an element-wise swarm gradient across 10 million nodes, the massive CPU baseline took roughly 431 milliseconds. But the NVIDIA H200? Just 0.07 milliseconds. That is a jaw-dropping 5,861x speedup, proving beyond a doubt that the architecture can handle vast, real-time intelligence at an enterprise scale. Yet, even operating at those blinding speeds, the Guardian Gate remains perfectly disciplined. Remember, confidence is derived only from strict measurements. The system is engineered for fail-closed honesty. It only executes and issues that mathematical seal when the safety confidence threshold strictly meets or exceeds the Callahan plateau of 78.42. If it misses that mark by even a fraction of a percent, it will not seal, period. And that brings us to our conclusion: infrastructure for trusted AI. So we've journeyed all the way from the looming threat of massive regulatory fines right down to nanoseconds atomic timestamps. And it perfectly encapsulates the core ethos of pyraclaw: evidence before authority, builds forged, attest everything, overclaim nothing. This framework isn't just a band-aid to avoid a 35 million euro fine, it's literally the foundational infrastructure for the next era of AI. It takes the opaque, makes it transparent, and makes the unexplainable perfectly auditable. The compliance clock really is running. As the entire world shifts to strict AI oversight, just taking your vendor's word for it, it's not an option anymore. So I'll leave you with this to think about regarding your own enterprise infrastructure. When those regulatory deadlines actually hit in August 2026, will your AI's decisions be mathematically provable? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you in the next one.